Hello there, my name is Walker, Bud Walker. I'm a Plymouth salesman like you. The other day I had an appointment at the Plymouth factory to find out all about the body and chassis of this all-new 55 Plymouth. The man I talked to was a Plymouth design engineer, and what he told me turned out to be so helpful and valuable from a sales standpoint that I thought you might like to hear about it too. I started off by warning him I'm no engineer. I'd better warn you to keep it simple, Dan. Most of this technical stuff is way over my head.
Okay, Bud. I guess there are a lot of people who aren't even interested in the way a car is built. I mean the customers who think all cars are pretty much alike. So all they're looking for is a deal.
You can say that again.
Actually, when a good salesman gives them the facts in terms of what the engineering features will mean to the owner over a couple of years, most folks will put a lot less importance on the deal. That's where a Plymouth salesman has a big advantage. I mean the advantages that are built right into a Plymouth. When it comes to quality, we're so far ahead of competition that Plymouth is really in a class by itself. For example, take this all-new Plymouth for 1955. Now, here's a car with plenty of customer appeal just on looks alone. But this new Plymouth has more than style, because underneath all that surface beauty, every detail of the body and chassis is packed with solid value.
Yeah, but is it something I can understand?
Yes, sir. I'd like to tell you about some features that you and all your prospects can see and feel and appreciate. In other words, real, honest-to-goodness, down-to-earth customer benefits. Benefits that can help you sell Plymouths.
Great. Let's hear about them.
To begin with, let's take the question of interior roominess. As you know, Plymouth has always provided more passenger room than any other car in the low-price field. In fact, in such dimensions as headroom, legroom, and seat width, Plymouth has outclassed many high-price cars.
Yeah, and you know, that comes as quite a surprise to a lot of prospects.
Well, this year, they're in for another pleasant surprise. Because even with the low, sleek silhouette of the all-new 55 model, Plymouth hasn't sacrificed one bit of its traditional roominess. Now, as always, there's ample space for 3 adults in both front and rear seats. And even a king-size passenger can ride in comfort, with plenty of hat room and space to stretch his legs. Then take seating comfort. I believe Plymouth has always put more importance on passenger comfort than any other car maker. In fact, our chair height seats are not merely the best in the low-price field. They measure up to anything you'll find in the most expensive cars in the industry.
That's a pretty strong statement, isn't it?
But I can prove every word of it. These seats put the driver up where he can see the road and provide full support for his legs and back. That's something a customer will really appreciate, the first long stretch of driving he does in his new Plymouth. And when it comes to the seat cushions, we really shot the works.
You mean putting in dual flex springs?
Right, the finest construction money can buy. First of all, this cushion has a set of full coil springs. And that beats competition right there, because the other low-priced cars have always used a cheap version of zigzag springs. But that's not all. Our coil springs provide soft comfort for even a light person. When the coils are compressed by a heavier person, then a set of jack springs comes into action to provide another full range of cushioning action.
I see. Comfort for a 200-pounder and his 100-pound wife.
Right. And here's another feature your customers will like, this pull-type seat adjuster handle. It really works by fingertip control. On the other hand, for any customer who wants the last word in luxury, Plymouth offers easy chair power seats. Just flick the control button forward, and the seat glides up and forward. Flip it back, and the seat glides backward. It works like magic. And speaking of luxury, if a prospect wants air conditioning, you can offer him the best in the automotive field, Plymouth Air Temp air conditioning.
What's the pitch on that? Does it do as good a job of cooling as, a room air conditioner?
Bud, this Plymouth Air Temp air conditioner can lower the temperature in the car from an oven-like 110 degrees down to the comfortable 70s, and do it just about as fast as you could cool a thermometer that same amount with an ice cube.
Wow.
But Plymouth hasn't missed any bets on its regular all-weather comfort system either.
How do you mean?
Well, for example, instead of a low intake that draws in exhaust fumes and road dirt, like most cars, the Plymouth system draws clean air from high above the road through a cowl ventilator. Even in designing the window regulators, our engineers came up with an extra benefit. They're easy to use. You open the window with just 2.5 turns.
You know, it's little extra touches like that that a Plymouth owner really appreciates.
Of course, Plymouth also offers easy lift power windows as a customer option. This feature lets you raise or lower any door window electrically.
All by push-button control, huh?
That's right. The driver has a master control for all 4 windows, and there's also an individual control on each of the other door panels.
Say, that's really convenient.
Another place where we shot the works is on body insulation. Here again, Plymouth is absolutely unmatched in the low price field.
How so?
Well, take the floor covering on the Belvedere, for instance. First comes a thick layer of mastic sound deadener, which also guards against rust and corrosion. Then comes a double layer of jute pad, and on top of that, a cover of extra heavy loop twist carpeting.
Sounds like you Plymouth engineers weren't taking any chances.
But our superiority is just as great on roof insulation and cowl insulation. In fact, when it comes to giving our owners a soundproof, weatherproof, rust-resistant body, we've got competition beat 4 ways to Sunday. And, of course, Plymouth also has suspended brake and clutch pedals, combined with our exclusive heel-pivoted accelerator. So the car has absolutely no floor holes that might let in dirt, noise, or road splash.
There's a sales point.
Yes, sir. And let me show you how this new 55 Plymouth body tops the field in safety benefits, too. For example, let's take the new full-view windshield. Here, for the first time in automotive history, is a car with a truly wrap-around windshield.
But that's not a Plymouth exclusive, is it? I mean, don't competitive cars have that same type of windshield?
I'm glad you asked me that, Bud, because the answer is very definitely no. On the competitive cars you're talking about, the corner posts are swept back only at the bottom. At the top, the windshield is no wider than the old-fashioned conventional type, which leaves a serious blind spot in each of the upper corners. Here, this sketch shows how much farther back we've put the corner post on our new windshield. The glass sweeps back both top and bottom. With this design, the driver has a clear, unobstructed view to the side.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Of course, to go with this wider glass area, Plymouth also provides new, specially designed, wider sweep windshield wipers. And these wipers are electric, which is another big safety advantage. You know how vacuum-type wipers can fail you in emergencies just when you need them most?
Yeah, and prospects know it, too. They'll understand the advantage of dependable wipers.
Good. Now, the soft, no-glare finish on top of the instrument panel is another important safety feature. It prevents dangerous reflections from getting in the driver's eyes.
Besides, it's good-looking. But tell me, is it true that this new Plymouth body is stronger than last year's model?
But that's putting it mildly. Let me give you a quick look at the body structure of this all-new 55 Plymouth. In front, we have new and heavier door hinge pillars, corner posts, and windshield header, all of steel box section construction, combined with a much heavier cowl and dash panel assembly. So we've provided a really massive supporting foundation for the new windshield. The floor pan has been made rigid with angle braces and a U-channel member welded to the pan. This body won't be developing any strange noises after a few thousand miles, and it gives an ultra-strong seating support. This new body also features new steel box section roof rails, extra massive steel center pillars, and a bridge-like steel supporting structure behind the back seat. You can tell people that these features mean a solid, safe, quiet body.
Sounds like it'll stay safe and stay rattle-free.
Absolutely. The new Plymouth is probably the strongest car ever built in the low-price field. Bud, you already know that the 1955 Plymouth is a completely new car, from bumper to bumper. We were able to throw away the book and turn out a car with brand new features and brand new benefits for our owners. And that shows up in the chassis as well as the beautiful new Plymouth body. What's more, these are features you can rave about.
Good. Like, for instance?
Well, take this matter of easy handling. Plymouth has always been the most nimble and maneuverable car in its class. And this year we jump ahead of them again with a new steering mechanism. For one thing, we've reduced steering friction with a new 3-tooth roller mounted on ball bearings. But we've got even bigger news in Plymouth full-time coaxial power steering. Because just as our regular steering is the best in the industry, Plymouth again takes the leadership of the big three. For the first time, buyers now get a full-time power steering unit, which is an integral part of the steering mechanism, not just something added on to help out the regular manual steering.
Say, what does that word coaxial mean?
Coaxial refers to the fact that the unit is built around the center line or axis of the steering column. So you have a compact, integrated design in a protected location. It's easy to service and virtually foolproof.
Dan, I do know one thing. This power steering really makes a hit with every woman who tries it. Why, it lets them get in and out of the tightest parking spots with just a twirl of the finger.
That's right, Bud, but Plymouth full-time power steering has plenty of advantages besides easier steering. Try asking your prospect what happens when he hits a chuck hole or goes off on a soft shoulder. With Plymouth power steering, the system absorbs the wrenching force and lets him keep full control with practically no effort.
Say, you know, that could save a driver's life someday.
Yes, and here's a very important difference to keep in mind. Other power steering systems have a built-in resistance up from 4 to 7 pounds, and they work for you only part of the time, only when the steering force needed is greater than that resistance. So on the highway, where steering should be easiest, part-time power is actually harder than manual steering.
How come?
Because every time you make the slightest turn of the wheel, you have to overcome that built-in resistance. By contrast, Plymouth coaxial power steering works for you all the time, with instant power response whenever you touch the wheel. So you can drive all day over the roughest roads and still arrive home relaxed.
I see, because all you have to do is just guide the car.
Right. And another factor in good handling is the way Plymouth takes the corners.
Now, we've got 'em all beat a mile on that.
We've got 'em beat even further in 55, Bud. And the reason we're superior is that there's a whole series of good cornering features built into the front and rear suspensions of this new Plymouth. They hold the tires squarely on the road and brace the car against swaying and tilting. I'm talking about such Plymouth features as non-parallel control arms, the sway eliminator bar, and the splay mounting of the rear springs. In addition, the front tread of the new 55 Plymouth has been increased more than 2.5 inches. This produces a more stable ride, better cornering, and even greater safety and comfort on the turns. Also, the rear springs are now a full 25% wider.
Is that important?
You bet it is, Bud. That's a big increase. It tops all major competitors and gives the new Plymouth real road-hugging stability. Now let's talk about riding comfort. And if you've driven this new Plymouth, you know it's got a ride to challenge the most expensive luxury cars in the industry.
I know it sure smooths out the bumps on a bad road. I suppose that's due to the Auraflow shock absorbers, isn't it?
They're mighty important, Bud, but actually, that's just one of many factors which go to produce the Plymouth ride. For example, take body length. This year, Plymouth is 10 inches longer. The increased weight behind the rear axle snugs down the car, just like a sandbag in the trunk, to produce a wonderfully stable road-hugging effect. And let me emphasize that our goal was balance. Those extra inches weren't added on just so we could say the new Plymouth is a longer car. The combination of wheelbase and body length was selected because they're the precise dimensions needed to place this car in perfect balance. Now, let's take those Auraflow shock absorbers you were just mentioning.
Yeah, how do they really stack up to competition?
Bud, they're unquestionably the finest in the automotive industry. And if you want an actual comparison, they're 2.5 times more effective than ordinary shock absorbers.
Wow.
So they really do give you extra control on the hard bumps where you need it most. On each front wheel, of course, there's a big, soft coil spring, which soaks up road irregularities and lets the frame float along at a smooth, constant level.
Say, it looks like the front shock absorbers are mounted inside those springs, Dan.
That's right, Bud. This protects them from road damage and gives them a direct, straight-line control over the spring action. So they're more effective than ever.
Looks like you fellas didn't miss a trick when you engineered this Plymouth ride.
But I can honestly say that comfort and quality are two watchwords here at Plymouth that show up in every detail of this all-new 55 model. And that's why I can guarantee that any time you take a prospect out for a demonstration in the new Plymouth, you're showing him a comfort ride that competition can't possibly match. Now, what about safety features in the chassis?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. You know, that can help sell a lot of prospects.
Well, let's start with brakes. This year, to handle the increased braking loads due to the boost in power, all our V8s will have bigger front brakes with 11-inch drums in place of 10-inch. And V8 Suburbans will have bigger drums both front and rear. Now, of course, anyone who test drives a Plymouth quickly finds out that Plymouth Safeguard hydraulic brakes are unmatched in the low-price field.
That's for sure, Dan. I like to show how they always give the same even, predictable, straight-line stops.
You can tell folks that they get those straight stops because each Plymouth front wheel contains 2 brake cylinders and 2 anchors. So each brake shoe gets direct action, and it's still a Plymouth exclusive. And when you talk to a prospect about power brakes, you can tell him these Plymouth advantages become even more important.
Well, what do you mean by that?
I mean that because the Plymouth service brakes are the best to begin with, the addition of power makes them even more effective. But adding power assist to brake systems like our competition uses simply magnifies their faults. What's more, our power brakes are an integral design, not an add-on package. The unit, which includes the master cylinder, is mounted under the hood where it's protected and easy to service.
Good sales point. Now, what about the use of Plymouth power brakes?
Well, first off, they give full stopping power with about half the usual pedal pressure. And even if the engine power should fail for any reason, you can still get the action of the regular Safeguard hydraulic brakes simply by pressing a little harder on the pedal. Another important safety feature is Plymouth's unique independent parking brake. It gives you an entirely separate stopping method for emergencies. Not a new feature, maybe,
But still a dramatic one, and new to every competitive owner.
that's right. And add to all these advantages the new tubeless tires, which just about eliminate the chance of a blowout, combined with our exclusive safety rim wheels, which let you come to a controlled stop if you do blow a tire. And I think you'll agree that this new Plymouth offers greater safety benefits to the buyer than any other car in the low-price field.
It's a terrific combination, all right.
Well, Bud, I hope I've given you the information you came here for.
Dan, you've done more than that. You've given me a load of sales ammunition that's bound to impress any prospect who's looking for the best buy in the low-price field. Because these are the facts I need to prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that the all-new Plymouth is truly value on wheels. "1955 would introduce new models which normally cause sales to increase. The new 1955 Ford saw its output jump by 116%. Chevrolet was right behind with a 108% increase. In contrast, Plymouth volume only went up 78%. But Plymouth would increase its market share to 17.7% of the low-priced field. 1956 would fall to 15%, which was even lower than the crush of 1954. So 1955 was a very good year for Plymouth. The cars had a good name for quality, engineering, and performance. Chevrolet's dual points distributors were burning out at 4,000 miles on police cars, causing a lot of maintenance costs, so Plymouth stole a lot of fleet sales. Motor Trend tested the low-priced 3. After mileage, acceleration, and handling tests, they proclaimed the 1955 Plymouth as the best handling. Chevrolet beat Plymouth to 60 by clocking at 12.3 seconds compared to 13.1,
and Ford's 14.5. However, Plymouth outran Chevrolet in the top end at 98.4 miles an hour compared to Chevrolet's 97 and Ford being slowest at 95 miles per hour. Don't forget to subscribe where we will go in depth on comparison articles in the future for these cars.